Salve onorevoli, rieccoci qui in un nuovissimo episodio su The Dwarves. Io sono l'Arax di Cormaris e nello scorso episodio ci siamo lasciati con il fatto che avevamo trovato la nana e ora dobbiamo proseguire verso queste belle incognite. Comunque non so se vedete, se ci fate caso, quando voi vedete che magicamente scatta verso di lato è perché vado su Windows a vedere se sta registrando, quindi sì, è semplicemente per quello.
When you enter the pretty little village with its richly ornate houses and its temple to Palandial at its center, you can see an angry mob some distance away. The villagers are hassling a young woman, insulting her and pushing her to the ground.
Chi non ha peccato scagli la prima pietra. Vediamo di raggiungere la
giovane. You push your
giovane.
way through the crowd of people and stand in the way of the villagers.
What's going on here?
A man dressed in richly decorated vestments looks you up and down.
Palandial be with you, dwarf. It is none of your business, but this woman here is a thief. She and her henchmen have emptied the monastery's granary and were willing to abandon us to our fate.
That's a lie. We asked for help and these people turned us away. I came back to ask again.
Quali prove avete che questa donna abbia commesso un crimine?
What evidence do you have against this woman?
We found the granary broken into. Almost a third of our grain and a significant amount of supplies have gone. And all this just one day after she and her people
Non funziona
were
proprio così la
around
legge,
here.
C'è qualcosa di sospetto?
That is indeed suspicious.
Really? We have a look around, steal some grain
No,
and supplies,
la mia
and on the
ironia non
next
era
day
verità.
I come back to get myself captured.
The woman looks defiantly towards you and the priest.
Beh, effettivamente un minimo di sospetto ce
Tell us
l'ha.
what
C'è da
happened.
dire.
The villagers grumble, but the priest gives the woman a chance to defend herself.
My name is Tavia. I was forced to flee Tabayin with my family when the perished land began to spread. My husband, we had to leave him behind.
The horror in the woman's eyes gives you a good idea as to what became of her husband.
No one accepted us in the north. There are too many refugees and everyone is scared. Queen Wei has offered land in Wayan to anyone who will work hard for it. But what should we grow if no one will sell us grain? We offered a fair price, but Father Malin...
She darts a scathing gaze at the priest.
He wanted double the amount.
The priest glances briefly at the angry villagers. Then he replies in a firm voice.
It was a hard winter. And with the increasing frequency of orc attacks, we must think of ourselves first and foremost. Even we cannot help everyone.
The bystanders mutter in agreement.
Se volete possiamo indagare
The
sulla cosa.
accusations are serious, so let's get to the bottom of the matter to be completely sure.
We have no doubt that she did it.
The priest looks at the villagers standing around him, the lust for blood written in their faces.
On the other hand, before we do something we can't undo.
Dissatisfied murmuring grows, which the priest debates with mollifying gestures.
Search for your evidence. You there, lock this woman up in the guardhouse in the meantime.
The woman is taken into a squat building made of rough blocks of stone. The crowd slowly disbands.
Parla con Mallo.
The priest is lost in thoughts, standing in front of the temple, as if he couldn't decide whether to go in or not.
Cosa potete dirci su
I
Seton?
was wondering, what was here first, the temple or the village?
Ah, a keen eye. The temple is indeed much too big for such a small village. It was built on the foundations of an old stronghold when salt was found nearby. The village has grown over the years in the shadow of the temple. Good people live here, honest and pious children of Palandial.
He glances at the place where the woman was surrounded.
Why can't we just be left in peace?
Perché la vita è dura. Quanto è importante per voi il grano rubato?
Supposing Tavia really did steal the grain and supplies, but only to save her family, would you turn a blind eye?
Palandial teaches generosity, but that too must have its boundaries. We cannot help everyone. At some point there won't be enough for us.
So, if you had sold the grain, the people of Seaton would have starved?
Maybe not. Not yet. But if we always give everything we have away...
Non
no
è
one is
generosità.
saying always, and no one is saying everything.
The priest shrugs his shoulders apologetically. He doesn't wish to spoil things with his flock.
Dobbiamo
You
andare.
nod goodbye, and
Entra nel
you
magazzino.
enter the village's large storehouse. The ground floor of the two-story building is full of turnips, with large barrels and clay pots on the floor and on high shelves. Several villagers are carrying out stock-taking. They're being supervised by a weedy man who observes them with a grim expression and writes things on a wax tablet every now and then.
Osserva la scena più a lungo.
Work is in full swing. The man with the wax tablet grumbles now and then in agreement when one of the peasants shouts out a number to him. It shouldn't take too much longer until they finish the inventory.
Salire scale
There
al
are
primo
sacks
piano.
piled up on top of one another on the first floor. They are most likely filled with different kinds of grain, and judging by the omnipresent white
Quella è coca!
dust,
Tanto in
flour.
quella è coca! No, dai, smettiamolo. Esamini l'angolo vuoto nella
You
penombra.
walk towards the only area in the storeroom where you can see the floorboards. You hesitate as your boots slip on the floor, as if you're walking on mud.
Tungdil?
The Magister Technicus carefully observes the roof beams above the empty corner. He grabs at a beam and crumbles something between his fingers. You can't make out what it is, so you copy him and feel damp, rotten wood. It's very easy to pull away small pieces.
What are you doing here?
The man with the wax tablet is standing on the stairs. He sounds half angry, half shocked.
No one is allowed in here.
Se nessuno può entrare, come mai siete
Who are
qui?
you? And what are you doing here if no one is allowed to be here?
I'm allowed to be here. It's my job. I'm the steward of the temple. Morris is my name.
Sapete che qui il tetto
The
perde?
rain has gotten here. The roof and the floor are damp.
Those savages. It wasn't enough that they steal from us. They had to damage the roof too. That was probably where they got in.
The wood didn't start to rot yesterday, good man.
The steward's face turns bright red.
And you are the experts on such things, are you?
Assuming the roof here has been leaky for a long time, what would have happened to the grain in the sacks directly underneath? Wouldn't it have turned rotten?
The man wets his lips. His gaze darts around the room.
The roof was fine. I'll have it repaired. And now, get out of here.
The steward angrily blocks off all further attempts at talking to him, and even when you threaten him with Father Malin, it doesn't have the desired effect. The father trusts in him, he says, and he's always been a devout follower. The heavy door of the storehouse closes behind you, and you hear a bolt sliding into place from the inside.
Abbiamo capito, il funzionario quindi ha preso, non si è accorto del legno marcio, ha fatto marcire il grano per poi l'ha buttato via, accusandoli del furto, per la sua negligenza, insomma. Entriamo
You
nella
enter the
guardiola.
guardhouse, and before the guards know, Boindil and Boendal have caught them up in a friendly conversation. Shielded from the view of the guards, you exchange a few words with the suspect without being disturbed.
Dov'è la tua gente? Soprattutto dov'è il
Where have
bottino?
you taken the grain and supplies?
I don't know anything about grain or supplies. Apart from the fact that we could do with both, I'm telling you, I am innocent.
Perché non sei tornata al villaggio?
Why did you come back to the village?
I wanted to negotiate with Father Malin for the grain. What else could I do? No sooner had I arrived than they surrounded me and accused me of robbery.
Raccontaci cosa è successo, anche se c'è da...
We won't let anyone do anything to you, but if we are going to help you, you will have to tell us the truth.
The woman looks you in the face, then her head sinks, and when she looks back up, she has tears in her eyes.
Please, I just want to go back to my family. I don't know what happened.
Tungdil.
You feel sympathy towards the woman. You raise your hand to silence Rodario and nod to the woman to continue talking.
We asked for grain and were full of hope when we saw the well-filled granary. But we hadn't reckoned on the malice of the people here.
A slow, ironic clap sounds from behind you. Confused, You turn around to face Rodario.
Bravo, my dear, with tears and everything. Tough luck that a master of the art of acting is present. None of what she said corresponds with the truth, Tungdil. She is lying and trying to deceive us. Not completely talentless for an amateur.
You expect the woman to deny everything, but when she overcomes her amazement, she spits in the actor's face.
And what if I am? I would do it all again. The people here have more than they need and my people are starving. Is that fair?
Perché sei tornato dopo aver rubato il grano e le scorte?
Why did you come back here after stealing the grain and supplies?
We didn't steal them. We paid for them. A reasonable price, just not to Father Malin.
You had help.
He promised us 3 dozen sacks of grain. When we opened the sacks in our hideout, we realised that most of the grain was rotten. He thought he'd get away with it.
The woman looks around wearily.
And by the looks of things, he has.
Credo di sapere chi fosse il tuo complice.
Morris the steward offered you the grain, didn't he?
What does that matter? I've no proof it was him. And even if I did, if I admit that we have the stuff, I'll be hanging from a tree by this evening and my children will starve. I beg you, let me go. We bought the grain and the supplies. Perhaps he wasn't allowed to sell it to us. But we paid. And with a little seed we can sow, at least some of us have a chance of surviving the year.
Se non ci avessi mentito la decisione sarebbe stata più semplice.
How can I trust you? You lied.
Who wouldn't do everything to offer their children a future? Lying is the very least.
Se restituite il grano, padre Malon potrebbe mostrare clemenza.
You've stolen, no matter how you put it. But perhaps Father Malin will show clemency if you return the grain.
Clemency for me and a death sentence for my family. Never.
Resterò chiusa fino a quando non troverò una soluzione.
Disenchanted by the course the discussion has taken, you shake your head and leave the guardhouse.
Affrontiamo
The
Malon.
priest is lost in thoughts, standing in front of the temple, as if
Il tetto del granaio
The roof
perde.
of the granary is leaky. We saw some rotten wooden planks.
Again? Morris only had the roof repaired last summer.
Did he? If he didn't, some of the grain would have got damp and rotten.
Out of the question. Morris would have reported that. He checks the grain once a month and there were no complaints.
the priest has absolutely no doubt in what he is saying, often a sign that someone hasn't
Appunto.
thought things over.
Dobbiamo
You know-
andare.
You nod.
Ma scusate, quindi finisce così? E se torno indietro?
You enter Seaton and take you nod.
E come farei? Per liberare. Rieccoci qui, ho ricaricato per il semplice motivo che voglio un attimo indagare meglio. Quindi si dico
Spit it
vabbè.
out. Where are the
I'd rather die than tell you that.
The woman looks at you determinedly, and neither of you blink.
Ok, allora, perché sei tornato ad aver rubato
Why
il
did
grano e le
you
scorte?
had
Già lo
he
già lo sappiamo.
Morris?
Vabbè.
I
Prima di tutto non credo tu debba restare rinchiusa. Ti lasceremo
Don't
andare.
want you to be hanged just because you tried to support your family. Go.
You open the door. The guards jump up, take up their swords, and let their hands sink down again when they feel the axes of the dwarves against their throats. The woman lays a hand on your shoulder for a moment as a sign of gratitude before she runs from the guardhouse.
I hope you know what you're doing, Scholar.
Rodario's furrowed brow does not give you the feeling you've made an undisputed decision.
Namora, seguili in segreto e scopri dove sono. Li seguiranno dopo un'ora. No, noi no. perché già sappiamo che i nostri amici fanno abbastanza schifo con la furtività, soprattutto lo stesso Tumbil. Quindi mandiamo Namora, che è l'assassina, insomma.
Namora, find out where she's heading and then rejoin us.
Fergus wants to raise an objection, but before he can think of the right words, Namora has kissed him on the mouth and has disappeared round the next corner. You leave the guardhouse and explain your plan to Father Malin. You expect him to object, but he seems to be satisfied. You assume he'll make you responsible for everything if something goes wrong, and will claim a piece for himself if you are successful.
Bene. Calstead? Non so se ci siamo
Like
stati.
every night in the wilderness, you set up camp and assign the watch. Bavragor takes first watch this evening, while the rest of you sit by a small fire, toasting some bread. You're not particularly surprised that neither Bavragor nor any of the others notice the guest who suddenly appears out of the darkness next to you.
Namora?
Namora!
Fergus jumps
Ecco.
up, and moments later has embraced her tightly.
Were you able to find out anything?
She didn't detect me and led me straight to the hideout. I can show you. It's a cave some miles off from the path. Almost 4 people, men, women and children.
You nod. You have tracked down Tavia's hideout.
Ok. Porco Giuda! Ma che cazzo? Quanto tempo ci avete messo ad arrivare? Poi noi abbiamo fatto una sola casella, la donna è riuscita ad arrivare fino a qua. Ok che noi siamo di più, però porco Giuda, tutto un limite, veramente. Ma che cazzo, guardate dopo il giro che devo fare. Dopo pagheremo sto stronzo, molto probabilmente.
You can make out a cave in the bank of a dried out riverbed, with several small fires burning in it. You don't see any guards, so you approach carefully. Men and women jump as they notice you. There is terror written in their emaciated faces. When a little girl screams and runs away from you, the whole camp is alerted, and a group of men and women step out of the cave.
Is that them? Your benefactors?
Tavia, who came out of the cave next to the man, nods.
You've led them straight here.
Who are you?
The man resembles Tavia. His face too tells of a struggle between defiant determination and
Come cazzo hai fatto a notare queste tre cose in un solo
I'm
volto?
Gerald, Tavia's brother. I led these people here from Tabayin.
You look around you. You guess there are about 10 families, less than 50 people. Half of them are children and youths.
Tavia non sapeva che qualcuno la seguiva.
Your sister couldn't have known that she was being followed. Namora has quite a talent for not being seen.
She shouldn't even have gone to Seaton in the first place. I knew that nothing good would come of it.
Come le cose a Taban.
Tabayin is a fertile country in the north, but much more importantly these days, it borders the Perish land to the east.
How are things in Tabayin?
Gerald's expression changes. It's as if he's looking through you.
The Perish land is raging. It poisons the spirit, and those who become possessed by it just...
Gerald looks at his hands, which he involuntarily forms into claws.
Eh?
They no longer recognize you. Brothers, mothers, children. My brother-in-law. I had to...
With visible effort, he wrenches himself free of his terrible memories.
We can only hope that the Magi manage to build a new barrier soon.
You cannot bring yourself to quash the last hope he has.
Tavia è andata a Seaton di sua iniziativa?
Tavia went to Seaton on her own initiative.
Our gold was gone and our supplies were dwindling, despite being on half rations. I said we should just take what we need if no one is going to help us, but my sister wouldn't have anything to do with it. She took the wedding jewelry from our village, the most valuable thing we had with us, and sold it without my knowing. She then took this money and went to Seaton with several men. I was completely beside myself when I heard about it, but then they came back with food and grain, and I thought they had really done it.
He laughs cheerlessly and shakes his head.
For a few minutes we thought we were saved.
Che problema ha il grano di
What's
Seaton?
wrong with the grain from Seaton?
We thought we finally had a change of luck for the better. We were praying for a new start, but then we discovered that most of the grain was rotten and unusable. They'd been ripped off by the bloody steward. We all got together and discussed what was to be done. The majority was in favour of going to Seaton and taking what was due, at any price. The next morning, Tavia disappeared. It was clear to me that she had returned to Seaton. We were going to give her a couple of days, and in the meantime, we prepared for our attack. We needed weapons, and we needed a plan.
Sono qui per recuperare le
The
scorte di grano.
supplies and the grain, where are they?
Gerald glances at your companions.
The grain is mainly useless. There's only 4 or 5 usable sacks. We shared out the supplies, and that'll keep us going for the next few weeks.
Potete avere il grano ma restituire le scorte. Ridatemi il grano e le scorte che avete rubato. Almeno il
If you
grano.
return the grain, Father Malin may temper justice with mercy.
Mercy?
Gerald spits at the floor.
Let my people starve so that the people in Seaton can live in affluence for another year? No, I won't let my family die. The grain and the supplies stay here.
Gerald braces himself.
Quello è andato a
We should
male.
appease the people of Seaton. Give them back half their grain.
You raise your hand to nip Gerald's objection in the bud.
I am, of course, talking about the rotten grain. You keep the
Ecco.
good grain, we will receive at least part of our reward, and Morris will be forced to explain how his excellent grain could turn rotten so quickly.
Boindale stares at you. Then a grin slowly spreads across his face.
Ha! That's our scholar.
Già, ma fin
You see
dall'inizio io volevo il
tired but
grano
happy faces
marcio,
all
non
around
quello.
you. The people breathe a collective sigh of relief.
We'll take half of the grain back in secret. Know this, good dwarf. Whenever you need help, we will stand by your side. We don't have much to offer you, but we can muster together a few strong arms for battle, and we have some outstanding archers.
You nod and are happy to have made some new friends.
Ma che si aggiungono altri
Sono-
stronzi al gruppo? Dimmi di no, ti prego. Ah, ecco, no. Non per nulla, ma perché già le scorte costano. Più già facciamo difficoltà a
The
gestire
fishing
questo
village
gruppo.
seems as
Bla
busy
bla
as
bla.
ever. You
Ecco.
give Samuel the gold, and after a long discussion with the dwarves in the group, you follow him onto the boat.
We could have died. I hope it was worthwhile, scholar.
Andiamo, è una barca, è una vecchia leggenda quella.
Your path. You
No,
leave.
passiamo. Ritorniamo qui e avvisiamovi del nostro piccolo successo.
You enter Seaton.
Parla
The
con Mallon.
priest is lost in thoughts, standing in front of the temple, as if he couldn't.
Il tetto del granaio
The roof of the
perde.
Again?
Did he?
Out of
Sì, ok. Abbiamo trovato il nascondiglio dei ladri.
We have found the thieves' hideout.
Really? That's welcome news.
With an encouraging nod, the priest of Palandial prompts you to continue.
Ci siamo occupati dei ladri, nessuno è riuscito a fuggire. Abbiamo parlato con quelle persone, è stato
We spoke to the
illuminante.
people there, it was very revealing.
And?
The priest gives you the same look he otherwise uses to reprimand the villagers' minor sins.
They say they paid Morris to sell supplies and grain to them.
The priest wants to object.
He ripped them off. That would be an explanation as to why Tavia came back this morning, don't you think?
The cogs are turning inside the priest's head. His expression reveals that he doesn't like his own conclusions.
And what about the grain and the supplies?
Abbiamo potuto recuperare metà del grano, aveva già consumato le scorte. Le scorte erano sparite, mentre il grano era marcio. Dimenticatevi dell'intera faccenda.
The supplies and the grain, you won't see any of it again. We were too late.
The priest eyes you in silence, and you look back without batting an eyelid.
I am not sure whether you have earned a reward, Mr.
Ma no, aspetta. Abbiamo fatto la cazzata. Rieccoci, allora. Di fatto avevamo sbagliato perché io ho visto il grano marcio e non ho letto bene la prima opzione. Quindi abbiamo potuto recuperare metà del grano. Avevano già consumato le
The
scorte.
refugees must have been very hungry. They'd already eaten the supplies by the time we arrived at the camp. We were able to secure most of the sacks of grain. We'll take them to the storehouse.
The priest eyes you in silence, and you look back without batting an eyelid.
Very well. You have earned this, Mr. Dwarf.
The priest brings out a pouch. He thinks for a moment, and then pulls another smaller pouch from his robes and gives it you.
It is time that my congregation concentrates once more on the essentials in life, togetherness, and the compassion of the goddess.
No.
He leaves you standing there without another word.
Vabbè, ben venga, abbiamo finito la missione nel migliore dei modi. Vediamo qui cosa c'è.
When you enter the strongly fortified mountain village, you see a large group of miners standing around a shaft in heated discussion.
I really saw them, I swear!
A young man in mining clothes defiantly stares at an older man who is a good head taller than him.
Even if you did, smashing the lift hoist, it would have been better to have not sent the cage down again until we cleared this thing up.
Is there a problem?
The older man, perhaps a foreman, is so angry that he hardly seems to have realized that he's talking to a dwarf.
Mika here says that he saw orcs in the mine, and he smashed the lift hoist to bits. The cage has crashed to the bottom of the shaft. How are we supposed to work now?
Beh, direi questo.
I would say he did the right thing. If the orcs have managed to come up through the mine, then you all might be dead.
I heard they were just grunting. And the stench. It was unbearable. You should have been there. I just wanted to save the village.
The young man and the foreman look at each other in silence for a few seconds.
All right, all right. Mika might not be the sharpest tool in the box, but the boy has guts. If he says there were orcs down there, then there were orcs down there. But the problem remains, we can't work without the lift.
Possiamo aiutarvi con le riparazioni.
Can we help you somehow?
Help? Well, we'll have to repair the hoist, and we need a new cage.
The foreman turns to a man next to him for answers. He's just as muscular, with dirty, calloused hands and an angular face.
It will take at least 2 weeks, but we don't need any help, unless you can speed up time.
I'll need 1 day. 2 at the most, if there are problems.
The foreman looks aghast at the technicus, unsure whether he's joking or not.
Vediamo l'opera.
Have you got any idea how...
Fergus is the most talented Magister Technicus in Girdlegard. And anyway, what have you got to lose? Let him help.
As long as he doesn't get in my way...
The worker shrugs his shoulders.
Why not?
Ecco, bravo. In cambio di alcune provviste, chiedi 30 razioni.
Then we'll help you, but we would like provisions for it. 30 rations.
Sure. If you pull it off, the provisions are yours. You really trust in your skills, don't you? Mika, give him a hand.
Fergus immediately gets to work, examining the hoist. After a few moments, he sends Mika off with a list of tools and spare parts, and explains to you how to build the cage, while he takes care of the hoist's rustic mechanism. After half a day, the cage is operational again, but Fergus is still busy with the hoist. You just hear him muttering.
So far, there is no automatic brake in case the ropes snap, but it shouldn't be too hard to fit one.
Installo un freno automatico, la prudenza non è mai troppa.
Fergus decides to fit the automatic brake, but it takes more time than expected. Building the hoist from scratch would have been simple, but the upgrade turns out to be complicated. In the end, it takes 2 days until the lift is operational again. After the work is done, you report to the foreman.
You've kept your part of the deal, we'll keep ours. Take the provisions for your journey.
Vediamo cosa da offrire. Una pozione, niente male, la prendo. Ne abbiamo solo 30. Ma quanto cazzo mangiate, figli di Troia? Cioè, o abbiamo altra roba stoccata. Ah, 107,30. Boh. Scoprire dove Brown
You travel down into the mine in the repaired lift.
Almeno aiutiamo.
Mika shows you the place where he saw the orcs, and you follow the winding gallery. After 1,000 paces, you stopped counting. and only after several hours do you reach an exit. There's a stench of tallow in the air. The tunnel leads directly into a huge orc camp, which blocks the pass into Snowdale Valley. If you attacked from here, you'd have the element of surprise on your side.
I could go and take a look and perhaps improve our chances for an attack.
You remember how the actor had transformed himself into Lot Yonin and Nudin in Mifidania? You certainly wouldn't bet against him being able to walk through the orc camp unnoticed.
I'll come with you. If I stay in the shadows, they won't see me.
The actor nods gratefully.
I'll come too. I also know how to keep myself hidden.
Nomura wants to object, but you are quicker.
Thank you, Geralda. 2 more eyes and ears would be helpful on such a mission.
Bene, è ora di infiltrarsi nell'accampamento.
Listen, try to sabotage their defenses, and if you can safely take out a couple of guards, then do it. But don't take any big risks. Come back here if things get too hairy.
Nomura and Rodario rejoin you without any particular urgency. The infiltration was a complete success. No one detected the two of them.
Ok. Ma, signori, fatto ciò, sono costretto a lamentarvi che il tempo è tiranno. Ci becchiamo nel prossimo episodio.